So the general ledger is actually the hub of all of the other modules. So if you're actually looking at the system, you'll see that debtors, creditors, inventory, point of sale, job costing, fixed assets, and all of their sub-modules all feed back up into the general ledger, because the general ledger is where all of the journals actually are getting recorded. We just briefly go and look at the general ledger, and you'll see in here you've got the ability to have normal sort of transactions. So you can do normal general ledger journals like an accountant does and affect those in the tax positions. You can receive money in, you can put payments through. You can set up standing journals and accrual journals and standard journals. So all of those sort of standard things that an accountant will do are allowed to happen. The aim of it is that there shouldn't be a lot of this. It should really come through from the sub-modules. You've got the ability to have budgeting in the system. You can have multiple years budgets, and we can look further at the inquiry in a minute. Listings gives us a list of all of the transactions that are, well, not so much transactions, but all of the listings of chart of accounts, posting account listings. We can then have a look at our reports, giving us our reports. And special processing is some added areas. Bank recs, a sub-module of there. If we just briefly have a look at maybe the main area of summarising what's happening in the general ledger, you can go in and pick an account. So an account can either be alphanumeric, in this case we've got a numeric one. We can pull it up and you'll see immediately we can have a look and have up to 18 periods of transactions, looking back at last year's, this year to date balance, last year to date, looking at budgets. If I pick a month here in March and then drill in on this, we can actually start having a look at the transactions that make up that figure. We'll pull in here and this will give us a list of all of the transactions for the month. You can pick and choose other months, but if I pick a transaction and click on the event inquiry, it'll let me go in here and actually drill in, and we'll see the actual journals that come from that transaction. So we'll see immediately here is all the other sides, the entries linked up by the event number, and if I drill down a little bit there, you'll see that every event has when it was posted, the date, the time, what financial period in the general ledger it went to, who did it, where they were sitting at the time. So it gives you quite a quick summary of what happened and where it happened and who did it and why they did it. Closing back out of there. We can come back out of our transactions now. You can look at your budgets, you can look into your chart of accounts, and you'll see in here the setting up the chart of accounts, which we'll cover in another section in more detail. It's really a little bit like setting up your spreadsheet of what code, where do you want everything to go to. And we can go in here and start setting up any number of profit and loss or sub-accounting areas that we want. If we go and have a look at what was the end result of feeding things into the general ledger, we get a whole string of reports. Maybe the first one that most people are after is the P&L balance sheet. If we run this up and have a look, we can come through and it'll give us very simple P&L. What's the general, in this case our stationery area, our equipment, giving us our GPs. We move to the next page, it'll now give us our profit and loss and our expenses. Carrying on through there, it'll give us your current assets, current liabilities and a standard balance sheet. That all works very well, and you'll see you pick a transaction and I can drill into a transaction and see what was actually making that transaction up for the periods and all the years. We come out of there. Other people want to look at the information in different ways, so we could do a period comparison, which gives you the ability to look at it like a spreadsheet. And I'll make that a little larger so you can just get a look at it. So it's literally is giving us July, August, September, October, monthly figures for every different account. Or same information, we can have it as a budget comparison report, which is giving us our budget, our actual variances for so our budget for the month, our actual for the month, our variance. Same for the year, budget, actual variance, and this year's budget. We have a series of transactions here that give you audit trails. You can drill in and actually do a management dashboard report as well. This gives you a sort of a summary situation of what's happening in the whole business. So in this case, this dashboard can be predefined and set up, but this one's now giving us our sales for the month, our outstanding debtors and creditors, what are our sales figures, our purchases. We can scroll down here and see what's our bank balances, what's in stock. So really giving management a quick overview of what's happening. And the flexibility is if there's numbers that you want to see differently there, you can go and use the report writer to create your own. And there is also for some ratio group analysis. So we can start coming in and getting some of the things like our current ratios, our asset test ratios, average days of stock turnover, some of the sort of things the finance people want to have a look at. Closing back out of there. Special processing lets us do a bit more control in the overall system. Things like running your BAS, which is mandatory for Australian terms, just to be able to run our BAS. So we just have a look at that one. I can pull up my BAS and it will produce for me my GST figures, monthly details of what's gone in, and it'll then produce the report for me. So if I print that and preview it, you'll see it's actually producing the BAS. So from there you can either submit that straight to the tax office or transpose it and send it to the tax office. A few other things in here that let you do, you can control your periods. So what period of the year are you having your debtors open, your creditors, your inventory, your job costing. So a little bit of control for the accountant on what's actually happening. And then you've got your bank rec as a sub-module, which lets you then deal with things like your bank reconciliations, etc. The full bank rec area has its own training area, so I won't go into depth, but just knowing that you can do your bank rec in there. So that sort of gives you a quick summary of the general ledger. General ledger, just revisiting that, is really the hub. It pulls all the information that's come mainly from your sub-ledgers up into the one ledger, give you that final reporting, giving you the ability to have your profit and loss report, your balance sheet all produced, keeps the accountants happy. So to set up the general ledger, we need to go and first of all set up our chart of accounts. So setting up your chart of accounts, we need to go to General Ledger, File Maintenance, Chart of Account Maintenance. Let's have a look at this demonstration company to begin with and just go through the different fields and functions that are in here. So first thing in here is when you're setting up a chart of accounts, it's very much like setting up a spreadsheet. You really want to put in whatever the account is, and you'll see as we're looking at this, it's really laid out like the report would look in its own right, with some headings on it, and then the accounts that we want to do, and then where we want things to add up to. So if I just come in here and look at the account code first, first things are here. This one is a numeric code. The standard Triumph code is an 8-digit alphanumeric, so you can put in any code you like. Something that is of interest for most people, you tend to think that you have to put it in account order. If I insert in here, I can actually put in any number. The system actually doesn't track the number for where it is going to go. This is just used as a reference for posting purposes. So the actual position on the chart is driven by where you put it on the chart, not by the number that it's given. I'm going to delete that. I don't want to actually have that there for the moment. So first and foremost, we've got the account code. Second field in this is a status field. Status field is either it's available to use, or if I hit the delete button, you will see what it actually does is now put a delete flag on there. So its status comes up as a red cross. So it's been flagged for deletion. What you will find is there are two sorts of statuses. When I hit the delete button, if it is just a normal line, so if I come to here, which is a normal line, and there is no accounts behind it, it will actually let me delete that line. But if it's an account that is set up as an account that's being used for posting purposes, and if we arrow across here, we'll see there's a posting flag on this one, it won't immediately delete that, because from an audit point of view, it's got to go back and have a look to see if that account actually has any transactions and can be deleted. I'm going to unflag that because we will use that account. So I can, as you can see, take things on and off. So it's more of a status that I want to delete this thing. Next field across here is we can put in to have general ledger, in this case general stationery sales, and this actually is the name of the account. So you can put anything you like in there. Something that's useful just to be aware of is when you're doing this layout, the definition of how this goes is what it's going to look on the P&L. So we can skip back and forth between things. I'm just going to pull up a profit and loss report. And this way you can see here is the different things coming through. So there's our headings and here's our profit and loss accounts coming through. And the way it comes through is the way it lays out. If I go back to my chart of accounts, and I will skip back and forth a bit here, what I can do is now pick up an account and go, I'll grab this account, and I can use a function here called indent, and this will actually move the description over. The same effect as if you've actually put a space bar in it, you want to move it over because you want it to actually look different on the chart. So I'll just do this, lay it out differently. I'll come back into my profit and loss and I'll close that one we had there a minute ago and just re-preview it. So you'll see now I've been able to move that layout and make it look differently. So a lot of the things I'm going to take you through here at the moment is all about just getting this layout sorted and deciding where things are going to go. So while we are in here just highlighting a few things, you'll see that there is different types of headings. So this is blue heading, underlined, normal headings, just normal bold headings. You'll see that there's a couple of columns of information, so one column of information, a second column for this year, and same for year to date. So all of this information is actually set up in the thing. You'll see these underlines, and I'll show you how to put those in as well. So we come back to our chart again. So what we're actually now getting is a column. So this is where I was just talking about having the two columns, and depending on where it is in the chart, if it's a balance sheet you can actually have up to 3 columns. In the P&L it's normally 2 columns. You've got level, which I will just hold off talking about, I'll come back to that one. We then have style, and this is the normal heading styles which we were just showing you. The best place to have a look for these is to go into the help area. And if I just move that across and you just arrow down in the help, you'll actually see in here, here's a list of all the different styles and how they actually come to and what they mean. I'll just make that a little bit bigger, then you can see it's a bit easier to read. So you can see the different styles coming through. Is it bold, italic, underline, blue? We're coming through now, and we have what we call an add to. The add to is very important in the whole scheme of things, because in Triumph it lets you define your own adding structure within the chart, and that way you can have as many different cost centers or profit centers that you like. We look at this, every account has to add to something. So at this stage, my account 1000, meaning my general stationery sales, is going to add to account 1200. If I look at what account 1200 is, it is the gross profit for general stationery. It's going to add through to account 4015, which will be total gross profit in the income statement. So if I just scroll down, you'll see it's that gross profit in the income statement. I'll come back up again into where we were. If I look at the rest of the accounts here, then I've got my opening stock stationery, my purchases, closing stock, and consignment stock stationery, all adding through to my cost of goods sold account, being less cost of goods stationery, and then cost of goods stationery adding down into there. So it gives you a lot of flexibility how to add things and bring it all through. You've got a second add to, which does the same process. It's usually used when you're trying to do divisional reporting or consolidated reporting, and I'll show you a few examples in a later training course. We come across, then we have our debit and credit settings. do we expect this account to normally be a debit or a credit? The main driver for this is it reflects what will actually show on the P&L. Behind the scenes in Triumph's accounting records, so if I actually click on the figures, let's pick on a number that's going to have some figures. When I look at a set of figures, the system will always have my credits being shown as negatives and my debits being shown as positives. But when you're actually printing that out on a P&L, you don't always want your sales to be looking as negatives. So what you actually do in that case is set it as being a credit, and then when we have a look at our profit and loss statement, you'll see that's actually reflected. It says if it sees a credit, make it a positive number. Same thing with my debits here, it's seeing a positive as debits, and therefore treats them the right way and makes it a lot more readable from a point of view of the income statement. Is the account a posting account? There's two settings here. Normally if you're looking at headings aren't postings. The only time you have for a posting is for something that you want to allow a user to journal against. So these are the actual real accounts in the chart. The rest of the non-posting accounts are used more for just laying it out and making things look tidy. We have a tax field. You can set up default tax codes. For most people, they tend to leave this blank. The only one I tend to use a little bit is the capital acquisition in my balance sheet for my fixed assets. Otherwise, I leave it to be controlled by the sub-ledgers, which is the debtors invoicing, creditors invoicing. Arrow across a bit more. We then have ratios. So ratios allows us to set up all of our ratios analysis, our EBITDA and quick ratios and current asset ratios. We have a standard business reporting code, which is a government code, so we can send XML reporting through to the government. I skipped over one thing in here, which was the levels. So we'll go and have a look at the levels, because levels is quite powerful in getting out some reporting. You'll just notice here we've got level 3s, level 1s, level 2s. If I go into my P&L for a minute and see that there's a function here that gives me a level. So I've been doing a level 0, which is the lowest level. If I now move up to say a level 2, what this is create a summary set of accounts, so taking my general stationery sales and cost of goods sold and just giving me a summary for that figures. If I close that and go to a level 3, we take that summary up to another level, just giving us gross profits in each department and the net profit figures. If I take that up to say a level 5, it just takes me up and gives me a net profit figure. Or I can go back down to a level 1, which gives me back to my detailed levels. I've been studying or looking mainly here at your P&L. You'll see that you also have your balance sheet side being set up through the chart as well. So when I look at that key component up here, is you're actually setting up your balance sheet or your P&L. These are quite important in structuring things, because at the end of the financial year, profit and loss accounts are always zeroed back to zero, and balance sheet counts are brought forward as the new balance in the new financial year. So just be careful when you're doing that so that they actually do end up in their right periods. That gives you a fairly quick summary of your chart of accounts. So I'd suggest you have a play with setting a few things up now. So I just want to go into the general ledger chart and have a look at a few extra bits and pieces in here. Some of the things that make it actually quite handy to do things. So I'm just going to go to the general ledger chart of account maintenance. The first thing we want to look at in here is there is an ability to change things like in bulk. So there's a lot of things that you set up initially when you're doing it that you do individually. But if I actually come through and use this function here called mark, I can mark an account and I can mark another account. So this is just like when you're doing a spreadsheet, connecting and marking a block that you want to make changes to, and you want to change formats. So once I've marked something, I can come in and insert something. I can delete the whole section. I can indent the whole section. I can outdent the whole section. So if I just outdent there, you'll see it. It's all moving out backwards, or I'm doing indenting and I'm moving the whole lot back and forth. I can copy a section, and I'll show you that in a section. I can grab a section here and say I want to move this. So if I arrow down here a little bit further, and I want to move that whole section down here, I can just go, yep, I want to move it, and it moves it down there. So just highlighting that the count numbering doesn't actually mean anything. It allows you to move it around the chart and get the format where you want it to be. I'll move that back to where I want it, where it was, so I don't upset my whole system. So I move it back to where it was. I'll put it back in the middle of the screen. I can come through here and I can change all of my columns to being column 1 or column 2. So I can make them all column 2, and you'll see that now group is now all column 2. I can do the same with my levels. I can set that whole group to a certain level. I won't apply that at the moment. I can change the add to in a group from one area to another code. And you'll see I've got the repeat code. So what if I do this, it actually leaves the code as it was previously and just overrides with the code that I've put in new. So in that question mark here, if I went question mark, question mark, oh, question mark, 67, the effect of that would be everything would become 1267, 1167, 1167, 1167, 1167. So the first two codes would be left as they were. I'm not going to do that. I can change my add to. I can go and change my debit credit from being debit and credit and make the whole group the same. I can make things move into being posted, etc. So I can take them from being posted or unposted. Challenge there, if something's been set up for posting, it won't just let you take it to unposting without checking that there's no transactions in there. One of the more powerful things is when you are setting this up is just like you in a spreadsheet, you want to copy a section to a new section. So if I want to grab this whole section that I was just dealing with and go, I want a new, I'm going to unmark that for a minute and say, I want to mark this whole general stationery section, mark it, and I've now got a new department in my business and I want to copy it. So the first thing it does is let me set up a copy here and it has a mark. So it says, based on your old numbering system, what do you want to put in there? So I want to put a capital T because I'm putting an example, and then I want all the numbers to be the same previously. I want my add twos to have the same thing. So really all I'm doing is changing the first number from a 1 to a T, and I'll keep the second add to as it is. So I'll bring all that through happily. I can set my posting table to be reset back to blank if I wanted to, or I can leave it the way it is. I'm just going to leave it as reset, so that way I can hit OK, and now I've brought this in as a new section, so I can actually give it a change its name, to do whatever, and it's brought that whole group through. I will just mark that area again because I don't want to leave that in there. And I've marked it, and I can now go and delete. Because I've set none of those as postings, I can now delete that whole section quite happily. So that gives you a fair bit of power to actually move things around and start to set things up. Something I have skipped here is if you've got notes set up in here, you can set up notes under the maintenance area. So if I go back into General Inquiry, pull up an account, and put in a note on an account. And I save that record. Oh, I need to refresh that, and that'll give me a note telling me that I have a note outstanding there. I won't refresh at the moment because I want to show you a couple of other things before I do that. So something that's coming through here, you'll see as I do a P&L, I run a P&L, I have these underlined so you can see where my card numbers have now come from being under column 1 into column 2. but I have these underlined. What I can do is, in my chart, is put in a single underline with just putting in a number, or if I want to put a double underline, if I just put a double there, or if I insert, and you'll see down here there's some special effects, a single underline, a double underline, or if I want a new page on my P&L, I can put that through, and the effect of that will be when I run my P&L, so I run again now, I put a double underline and I forced it to have a page break, so I can actually get my pages laying out where I want them to be. Alright, so I'll just get rid of those, put that back to where it was. So that gives you a little bit more power of what you can do in there, just taking through a few extra bits and pieces with the chart and moving things around, because that ability to set the chart up is key to getting your structures right. Something that a lot of people do when they're designing their charts for Triumph or designing the chart is based on what the tax accountant wants. I tend to look more at when I'm trying to design the chart, not so much what the tax accountant wants, but what information the management and people need to be able to get their groups and departments set up so they can see where the profitability of the business is. So that's not a topic I'll go into for a long time, but it's something when you are designing, have a think about what information the management need to be able to see which sections are profitable, which ones aren't. It isn't all about doing the tax return or getting your BAS done. I'll leave you those thoughts. So hopefully by now you've learnt how to do a fairly simple chart of accounts. What we're going to cover now is just a couple of the other ways that you can do charts in Triumph. The one in this session is going to be mainly about departmental reporting, and there is another area called divisional reporting where you're actually using the complete multi-division functionality. That in itself is a complete training course. Today's one is more about departments. So classically a department is, if we just explain where you'd use it, is when your business is broken into different areas. So each different manager wants to get a profit and loss for their section or a cost centre. So you might have a projects area or a sales department, you've got a service department, you've got an admin department, but you want to be able to get a P&L for each of those departments, but also get a consolidated position for the whole business. So let's just go in and have a quick look at things. I'm just going to do a P&L to start with. I'm going to suppress it and turn on the account codes. The report I'm running at the moment has no figures in there, but it's just to try and give you an example of the structures of what's happening. So I'm just having a look at this report. So this is my project department where I'm building things. I've got costs and purchases coming in. I then have direct expenses that come in for my department. And I want to get a net profit for that area. I then come down to the second page, so I'm into my service area. They've got their sales, they've got their normal cost of goods sold, their normal expenses coming through. They want to get the profit for their department. And then come through and I have my admin department and they have their expenses coming through. And then the other income, what's the net profit or what the costs of running that department are. And then I have my consolidated where I'm bringing through all my sales accounts, even my total sales, my total cost of goods sold and my total expense areas. They're making it fairly easy to actually give reporting for management. So every department is individually reported and then you can get a consolidated picture. So how do we actually set that up to make that all flow through quite easily? Very simple. It's just a matter of doing it in the chart of accounts. So if we come into general ledger, file maintenance, chart of account maintenance, first thing I normally do is I try and set up my GL code with some sort of logic. You don't need to have it in this logic, but this is just my logic. I tend to normally use a couple of digits. So in this case I've set up my department 10 and then I'll have a sales account coming through. So there's normally 2 digits for my department, and then the next 3 or 4 for the expense or income account that I'm using. So the reason people sort of go, why do you use the first couple of digits? It's normally because in a reporting sense I want to actually have it so that each department's grouped together, so if I'm actually looking at a code I can immediately recognise that the prefix is the department, and it just means that as we run a report it's always grouped by that code. A lot of people will try and do it as a suffix or a cost centre at the end. Problem with that, when I'm looking at reporting, it means that I'm looking at all of my accountancy fees with each of the different departments together, rather than saying, well, hang on, what is my overall departmental position? So if you've got that idea in, so I've got my account code in there. I'm starting to use, previously we were using add two ones to bring things through, and you'll see if I'm looking at add 2-1, it's going to 101090, which is my total sales for this area. So very easy to get what it is, and following down add 2-1, it gives me my departmental profit. What I've then got is my add 2-2, which is the new function coming in, and I've set it up so that it is going through that it's going to department 90, account 1000. Or if I scroll down here to further down into my expenses, I can see my advertising and promotion costs coming through here, which is set up to account 10, 13, 20. It's adding down to my total expenses under add 2-1, but it's adding up to 90, 13, 20. If I come down into the department 20, which is my service department, you'll see in here I've also set up 20, 13, 20, going advertising and promotion again. Initially it's adding down to the 20 department to give its P&L, but it's also adding up to 90, 13, 20. So giving me this concept that my advertising and promotion is always going through to the same account, and just makes it very easy for a user to be able to track through and go, okay, that account is going to add through to that account. All of these accounts are posting accounts, so they're the normal processing accounts. If we just carry on down into my 80 department, you'll see the same thing here. Here's my 80, 13, 20 coming through, adding up to 19, 13, 20. If I come down into my consolidated department now, you would see there's my 90, 13, 20 all being added up. And what is different though, there is no posting account, because this is just a totaling account to get all my total advertising and promotion. So what that means is in a report I'd be able to see how much advertising and promotion went into the department for projects, how much went into the service department, how much went into the admin department, and then this is giving me the grand total of all of those three, and that replicates down for all the expenses. So therefore giving me a position, I'm getting a report of each department and then a consolidated overall. And then at the end of the consolidated area, I just add in my normal retained profits, so that'll carry through into my balance sheet. I just come back in here and we'll just rerun that P&L again. Just so you can see exactly what we're getting to. You're getting initially getting my projects, which is all my 10 codes coming through, adding all those through and then giving me my net profit for my 10 department. Nice and easy. I then get my 20 department, and that gives me a total for my 20 department. In this case my 80 department coming through and giving me the totals for my 80 department. And then I come to my consolidated area, which is giving me my, in this case I've called it my 90 area consolidated, and it will then be bringing through and giving me a consolidation of my 10, 20 and 80 departments all into the one report. So giving you a lot of flexibility for doing subgroups and sub-departments of reporting, and give you a lot more power to break down what parts of the business are producing what incomes or what overheads. Hopefully that's made it a little easier how the add 2-2s will work in your day-to-day processing. So you've been setting up your chart of accounts, and with that chart of accounts there's a few things that are worth just noting once you've set up the basics. Normally what I would do is after I've set it up, I come into special processing. In special processing there's a function called validate my chart of accounts. What this does, if you have a read of that, it goes through and checks the controls accounts are set up properly and checks up the things that are adding correctly. So it's quite an easy process to run, and you'll see it run through here. It's pulled up a few accounts with some warnings. If I had things that didn't add up correctly, I'd be getting errors or accounts that weren't going through. I'm quite comfortable that those things are correct, so I'm looking at going, yes, that was just a subtotal, my net assets, and my total equity, and I've got my suspense set up as a separate account. One of the more common things you see here is where someone has previously had a chart of accounts set up and they've accidentally ticked it from being a total account into a posting account, which will then cause all of the accounts that were adding into that totaling account to throw up as errors. So if you do get a thing that your situation that your P&L is not balancing, it's always worth running your validate chart of accounts, or if you're doing a new one, I always run it to make sure it's correct. One of the other things I normally do when I'm setting up a chart is I also come back into my reports and run my normal P&L balance sheet. When I run my P&L balance sheet, even if I don't have numbers in the system, I can turn it off and use the zero suppress. I turn the print account codes on. When you run this through, what it actually then gives me is the accounts and gives me the layout of where things are. So I'm looking at that and I can immediately see that where I've been doing things, I've got my underline here in the wrong place. It should really be over in there, or is it realistically I should be moving that back over there. So in running through and looking at my chart, I'm getting this so that when it prints out for someone else, they can look at it and it makes sense. And you can run this as many times as you like to get the numbers right, making sure things look right. I'm not going to go and fix that now, but it would be something I should look at fixing before I gave it to someone to start working on correctly. While I am in looking at the chart of accounts, one of the things that causes people a little bit of stress at times is how do we deal with the situation of our retained profits? So traditionally the situation in a Triumph is it comes through and you set up and you control what your opening retained profits account is and what your closing retained profits account is. So I can see here that I have a situation, I've got my net profit before tax, less tax expenses, giving my profit after tax, any retained earnings for the previous year coming through, giving my carry forward position. And if I then go into my balance sheet and go to the last page of that, you'll see I have my retained carried forward. So normally I would have set this carried forward up to be linked to the retained profits brought forward in my P&L, so that it can just roll through every year, and I can then make sure things are actually, in this case, net assets, net liabilities or net equity are all balancing through. So just coming out of there, and we'll look at the chart of accounts for a minute just so you can see the same situation. So there's the settings I've had. I've just set it up so that my net profit after tax is adding through to my retained profits carried forward, retained profit brought forward is coming through, and then this is pulling through into my balance sheet. By pulling through into my balance sheet, I've then got this coming through as an account, which has got a non-posting, it's just pulling through as a total. Just briefly looking at that in my system control. We'll look at this in a bit more depth later, but in my general ledger control maintenance, I'm then setting up my brought forward and carried forward so they know how to relate to each other, so that when I do an end of year, it does roll through correctly. Hopefully that couple of little points will just make it easier for when you are setting up a chart and making it easy to go from there. So I want to have a look at some of the information in the general ledger. To do that, normally I go to general ledger, file, maintenance, inquiry, and you go to the general ledger posting account. And if I come in here, I can look up an account. I can search for an account by its number or account code. I can search by part of a name. So if I just put in sales there, I can find anything that starts with or contains. So grabbing what I want, grab that, have a look at it. First thing you see is when this comes up, it's all of the information that's previously been set up in your chart of accounts area. A couple of other little things that are worth noting. You'll see this little thing here. This actually tells me that I've got some notes that have been recorded on this account, so I can go and have a look at that and put a note on my general ledger. You'll see there's sort of entries down here, figures and transactions. So if I click onto my figures, it'll give me the figures, transactions per month. First thing we see is it's got all of the years, months of the year. In this case, I've got a system set up for 12 months and for 6 months in advance or to work on. The general ledger is good because I can actually have this as being date-based reporting, so it could have 13 or 14 periods or whatever we want to have. But the information it's giving me is the period information, last year's comparisons, year-to-date total, last year-to-date totals, budget per period, percentage on last year and a percentage on my budgets. If I want to go and have a look at the transactions that make up these numbers, I can either do it by clicking on the transaction button or choosing any of the different periods. If I click into March, it will go in and take me into now to show me the general ledger transactions that make up March. And when I'm in here, I can pick and move to a different period if I wanted to. So when I'm in, I can pick up an invoice. So let's have a look at this one and click on Event Inquiry. And what this will do is actually go off and give me the details of what actually makes up that transaction. So this has gone off. Let's make that a little bit bigger so we can all see it. It's giving me, for this event number, what was the general ledger journals, the debits, the credits, the entries, and you'll see all the entries coming through. What's quite important with this, it also tells me when was it posted, which was the 31st. Originally the transaction was dated the 16th. The date it was posted, what period in the general ledger it went, who was the operator, what computer they were sitting in, and what program they used to pump it through. If I come back to here, a few extra things we can do in here. We can actually filter information based on what's in there, so I can go and sort for everything that is a J for journal and just pull those out and have a look at those and remove them. I can click on here and drop this automatically off into a spreadsheet if I wanted to. Or if I click on the top thing, I can go to my field chooser and choose other information that I want to put on the screen. Alright, so that's pretty easy to look up things and understand what's happening. A couple of other ways to look for the same information is if I wanted to look at a general ledger journal or an event, I can do that from my debtors, creditors master files, my inventory master file, my job costing, or my fixed assets. So anywhere there's any postings, let's go up to the general ledger. You'll see an event inquiry in any of those, which lets you see the same information. Or you can go to via your chart of accounts. If you go via your chart of accounts and pick up an account here, you'll see the figures and transaction inquiry buttons coming through, which is giving you exactly the same information. Before I leave there, I'm just going to go back into my general ledger and pick up another account. Looking for my bank account. There it is. So if I pull up my bank account, what you'll actually see is also brings up a couple of extra pieces of information here. I can open up and have a look at my bank figures. So what was actually happening on my bank statement for the period. And I can then have a look at the transactions that were actually on my bank statement and which ones have actually been reconciled. So just giving me an ability to track through that. This also then has all the filtering capabilities, the ability to drop it into Excel, look at all the inquiries and figures, etc. So making it quite easy to see not only what's happening in your general ledger, but what's happening in your bank account at the same time. So that makes it nice and easy for you to track things through. So let's look at budgeting in Triumph. We want to go General Ledger, File, Maintenance, Account, Budget. In the budget, you'll see it has each account in the chart listed out here that's set up as a posting account. It's including both the P&L and the balance sheet, and it gives us normal debit and credit balances. You'll see it allows you to put in your year total and then a monthly total, and you'll see it give you each figure. So you can come in here and just manually enter these in if you wish to, and it will let you go into next year's figures. You can look at this year's budget, next year's budget, or last year's budget, next year's budget and forecast. So it's just a matter of deciding which one you want to actually maintain. I'm just going to deal with the main one at the moment. A few things that you can do in here. You can pick a figure and do some auto adjustments with it. So with an auto adjustment, it lets me have things increase by a percentage, a dollar, put in the year total and get it to split across the whole set of accounts. I can put in the whole 18-month total, or I can zero the figures. So maybe let's just have an example of one of these. Let's close this for a minute and come down to one of our expense accounts, and with our legal fees, we'll come in here and do a zero figures to start with. So therefore it's zeroed out all of the figures from there. What I can then do is come in, save that line, and I can say I want to have an increase on last year's actuals, last year's budgets, this year's actuals, this year's budget. My on-screen budgets I've already got, or the steps that I've already created on there. So I just want to go and say I want to have a 10% increase based on last year's actuals. Good thing I had no last year's actuals, so let's go and make that a change, and we'll do a year up total, and so we've got $12,000. So you'll see it's then split for me each month across the period, and we'll then save it. So most people can come in and do that fairly easy. With budgeting though, it tends to be more so that people use their Excel and they create their spreadsheet within Excel. If you do it in Excel, the key to doing that is making sure that on your Excel spreadsheet you've got the account code and the account code, because then once you've got the account code and the month, it's very easy to set up an import, so you can import your budget and fill these numbers in from there. So normally that's the way we would do it. I'm not going to go through you in this session how to do importing, but if you are setting them up, that's the way I would normally look to do it. So to get your general ledger to work in with all your sub-modules, what you need to be thinking about is how the postings work. Because all of the work that comes up into the general ledger normally comes through the debtors, creditors, inventory, point of sale, job costing, fixed assets, sub-modules. But a normal operator doesn't really know where it's going to go in the general ledger. They're just putting through their invoicing their stock item and doing whatever they're doing. So if we have a look at a stock items are controlled by pulling up a quick stock item. They're set up by things with called posting tables, and then you'll see this through the whole system. These are really summarising where things are going to go into the general ledger. So we'll go in and we'll have a look at how these all flow through in a second, but if you know that that's what's happening, you just need to make sure you've set up all of your control areas to begin with. So the first control area we really need to do is go to System Maintenance, System Setup, General Ledger Control, and then in General Ledger Control you go into General Ledger Control Account Maintenance. So you'll come in here and the system has lots of the default accounts already preset in here, and you just need to make sure you've set all these up or to have accounts in your General Ledger for them to go through. I'm just going to run through and talk about some of the different ones in here just to give you an idea. So suspense really is fairly crucial. It's where everything gets posted to should anything go wrong. So in case you haven't set something up correctly, it'll always throw itself into suspense. Classic example of this would be if I was in debtors and I hadn't previously had debtors retentions turned on, and when I turned it on, it was nothing set up in there. It would go and say there's no retention set up, I don't know how to deal with it. It would throw it to suspense. Next one down here is a default bank account. So when you're doing payments, receipts, what is the account that's going to normally go to? Fairly simple sort of thing, and you can change that on the fly. Default receiving account, same thing. If you're receiving cash in and you're not taking it straight to the bank, it's got to be held somewhere, so that's what the default receiving account is. Cents rounding deals with the situation when you're doing cash sales and you're rounding your transactions off to the nearest cent or nearest 5 cents. Where does that balance need to get put to? General ledger, we have the unappropriated profits brought forward and carried forward, really setting up what's going to happen at the end of the financial year and how does the P&L balance get carried forward into the balance sheet each financial year period. Foreign currency gain losses, if you are dealing with foreign currency gain losses in both debtors, creditors, or in the bank rec area, this will put through any of the gain losses on transactions when the gain or loss is crystallised into this account. Debtors, what is your normal control account for your debtors? Where is it going to be shown in the balance sheet? A couple of things that to bear in mind there. You can actually have multiple debtor control accounts if you turn that on in your debtors area. Settlement discounts, if you're offering someone a settlement discount to pay early, or commonly this is used when you're rounding off, someone's actually underpaid you by a few cents, etc., and you want to just write it off. Debtors retentions, where does the debtors retention sit if you're actually holding on retentions in their account and they are not going to pay you for 6 or 12 months? Where's that going to be showing in the balance sheet? Damaged goods, this is used for when you've actually got goods that you've brought back in as a credit and they're damaged and you want to reflect them as being expense in your P&L. Creditors, same thing with creditors. What's the creditors control account? So where's the liability going to fit? Same thing with this. You can actually have multiple control accounts set up by turning that on through the creditors. Settlement discounts, can you take up a settlement discount by paying early? Where do you want to reflect that coming back in? A retention on a creditor's account, you're holding off paying them for 12 months and you want to take it out of your normal trade creditors. Withholding tax, situation that you haven't got your ABN or haven't got all your taxes paid and it's withholding payment to a creditor. Purchase orders, committed liabilities, if you've got committed liabilities turned on. If you haven't got this turned on, these things aren't here, but this is actually reflecting where is your committed liability going to show, where's the committed expense going to default to. If you've got accrued liabilities turned on, where's that going to be put into the liabilities area. Inventory, this sets up all of your default entries for your opening stock, your closing stock, your stock on hand, your purchases, your sales, your discounts. A couple of extras that come through in here. If you've got the warranty function turned on and someone's claimed an account for warranty, where's that warranty expense going to be shown in your P&L? If you're running managed inventory or consignment stock, where's the liability for that consignment stock going to sit? If you're defaulting expenses out of your inventory and you're saying where I want to expense something as a default, you can set that up as a default to go straight through. Point of sale sets up all of the entries for point of sale. So what cash have you received through the tills for the day? What FPOS transactions have you received through the tills for the day? Any unders and overs received when you've done your cash count. If you actually sold something for no charge and you want to reflect the expense into the P&L, you've sold a gift voucher and you now have a liability outstanding. You've taken a deposit from someone for either an order or a lay-by, where's the liability for those sitting? Other income is normally comes through where you've written off a lay-by deposit or an order deposit because they haven't collected the goods and you want to reflect the income in some way. In costings, you've then got default purchase recovery, default labour recovery and default overhead recovery. Just reflecting some of the defaults coming through as you're bringing things in and lets you actually bring up the recovery so you can see the entries coming through, and you'll understand that if you do some more training in the job costing area. That's the main area for setting things up in general ledger control. Something that most people tend to forget about when they're setting up general ledger control functions is one other little area in the tax control maintenance under the GST area that you need to set up default paid on purchases, collected on sales, and the purchase accruals for your GST. And if you set those up, you then need to go into your common file options, file master, and do your tax codes. And just remember to do for each of the different tax codes where are the accounts going to go, because you can have it set up so that different accounts are going to different liability accounts, especially if you're doing things like wet tax. You want to actually reflect them in a different way. So they're the master type control accounts. If we now move up and look at the general ledger in particular, general ledger under the file maintenance, there's actually a posting table maintenance. We come in here and we can see there's numerous types of posting tables, and this is depending on which type of module it's coming from. If we look at the first one, which is just the standard, this really reflects that we're actually making sales of inventory items. So as inventory items, the standard type of things we're seeing is opening stock, closing stock, stock on hand, and purchases. Something that people need to think about a little bit more here. Triumph allows you to deal with your cost of goods sold individually as being opening stock plus purchases less closing stock for the period, or if you're used to seeing those as one cost of goods sold, you can actually merge all three accounts together and see it as one reflected account. We tend to actually break them out because it gives us a little bit more control over what's happening, and for a lot of people they know what their purchases for the month has been, but they lose track of it when they see cost of goods sold. So the other account is where's the sale going to go in the general ledger. So as we saw earlier, each different inventory control account can go to a different posting table, so we can be reflecting that into a different sales account. I'll just change you and reflect a different account for a moment. You'll see I've changed O2, so it's going to a different account there. Go back to that one, that changes to a different sales account. Just letting you flow things through. If you're taking up different discounts, where are they going? Where's the warranty going to go? And if I am doing MIMS, what's going to happen? So you'll see this one here saying me GL account inquiry. If I've only just turned this on, so this is coming up. If I tried to process something with warranty, it would actually throw up an error in day-to-day processing and throw that entry through into the suspense account. I'll just pick an account and put this through for the moment without really looking, not really the right account, but I'm just putting it through to anything because I could search for the right one, but I'm just going to save that as it is. I want to have a look at the other types of entries coming through there. I want to have a look at the job costing. So when we look at the job costing transaction, you'll see that the postings are different. It's now reflecting where's my opening work in progress going to be, what's my closing work in progress, my WIP assets, default expenses, revenue and discounts received. So literally giving me how much job work in progress have we got on our job that we're reflecting as an asset. If I'm putting through an expense, where do I want that expense for going to related to that job go to? Where's the revenue go for this department? You'll also see this expense categories. So we have an ability for this default expense, not just to go to one account, but it can be broken into different things based on whether it's labour, subcontract, materials, purchases or overheads. Or you can, and you'll see this later in the job costing training, break this expense code down into each different individual cost centre, so it can be broken down quite substantially. And we'll just have a look at the last type of one, which is a fixed assets type. So now we're getting what is our depreciation expense, what's the asset control account, where's our accumulated depreciation going, if we're doing revaluations on an asset, or if we're disposing of it, where are we going to reflect our P&L on sale. While I'm just looking at that, there is an ability to come through and also do a GL posting table listing. And if I just preview that so you can have a look at it, this brings through and gives you each of those things with the different codes, just so you can actually see them going to where they're going to go, and you can run that off and have a look at things. So we've been doing general ledger entries and things in all of your other submodules, and these come through into the general ledger automatically. But there are the occasional times that you need to do direct entries into the general ledger, normally generated by the accountant or by someone else. So if we come into general ledger, transaction entry, and you'll see under the transactions there's 2 or 3 different types of transactions you can put through. I'm just going to have a look at the journal entry for this session. So coming into here, first thing we do is we get the journal date. Whatever the date of the transaction is, it will normally then set that to the standard period. So if I change this to the 30th of the 4th, you'll see automatically it knows that that should be going to the April period. So depending on how your periods are set up, the journal date defines exactly where it goes. Comes through to the journal number. If I hit an enter key or a tab key, it'll actually automatically give me the next journal number. It'll ask you the question about how do you want to treat this for GST purposes. For GST purposes, a journal can either have no journal GST effect, or it can have an effect on the paid or the collected account. I'll just do one with a none, and I'll come back and then have a look at the other. I can also do a journal which affects currencies. So I actually can pick up a different foreign currency and put through a foreign currency journal. I'll leave that one for the moment and just come in here and do a simple journal. First thing we can do is a journal entry. I can search for my codes, normal searching where we're doing things where we can actually search for it by the code or part of the description. I'll just pick up a normal account. What's the date of the transaction? So the date doesn't have to be the journal date, it can be some other date normally within the period. The reference number, some internal reference number, document number that you're using, a description of what this is for. Let's break. So I'm breaking down some expenses. How much is it for? Do I want it to be a debit or a credit? And this will normally default based on whatever the account is. If your account's set up as a credit account, as in the general stationery shows, it'll default to being a credit. I'll leave that going. Something I've just noticed there, you'll see this little flag here. This tells me there are some notes on that account if I want to go and have a look at it. I'll put that through. I can pick another account. And what will actually happen, you'll see that they'll actually continue defaulting through the previous things we'd set up. And if I put through an amount, it'll automatically debit to that because it's the accounting fees. But it'll also be flagging it as a debit because it knows there's an existing credit balance that the other side should normally be a debit. And I'll pick up another one, and you'll see what it's actually done is automatically calculated that I had $1,000, I've debited 400, I need to get rid of the other 600. The journal itself won't actually drop off until we zero it out and get this back to zero. So if I tried to save something without balancing it back, it will not let me. I can then complete that transaction. Hit OK, and that will automatically post that through straight into my general ledger there and then. So if I just close there, went to my general ledger, file maintenance, posting account inquiry, went to that account that I just posted for advertising, we'll see there's the entry posted into April. If I click on transactions, it'll now drill into my transaction area, pull that up for me. I can see there's my breakdown. If I click on my event inquiry, it's giving me, there's the journal that's coming through, all the different things I've put into it, when and where it was put through. Nice and easy to track things through. So that was a fairly standard journal entry, and I'm just going to come back out of there. You'll see what I've done is I've actually left that open down here while I was processing on it. So I can come down here quite happily and open that up, and I'll just reopen it where I was. I want to put a different type of journal through now on this one. Same month. The next journal number. This time I want to actually make it a little bit different. I want to actually do it as a GST paid. So the effect of this one, it will actually go through and do my GST entries. So I'm just going to do going to see something with GST. So I'm going to put through $110 journal. It's a credit. So you'll see now, none of that was different, but what it has done is, because I said it's GST, it's opened up the tax code. So I do need to choose my tax code. So I'm just going to go to it's got GST in there. It's brought through the amount of GST that it believes that's in there. I can override that and put my own figure in. I'll then put in the other side of it, and I want this to go through. This time I'm going to say there's no GST on that account. So I'm literally taking an entry here. I've done a two-line entry. It said credit $110 to account 1000 and debit it out of 4210. So that makes sense. Let's just save that now and go back into our inquiry screen again. I'll pull up account 4210. And I need to go into April for that period. You'll see there's the GST entry. If I click on the drill down, and I'll make that a little bigger so it's easier to see, what's actually happened is it's gone through. As I said, the sales account 1000, the general stationery sales had GST. It's deducted it down to 100 and then broken the GST component out and put it to the GST claimable account and left it through. So it actually deals with all the GST components quite happily, and this will then get picked up into BAS and tax reports, etc. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how to do general ledger journals. Something that is quite handy to know, you can also, if you want to, import GST journal or normal journals from a spreadsheet, and that's just using the import facility. Not in this session I'm doing now, but something to know about if you want to actually look at that for the future. So you've had a receipt come in from somebody for money that isn't related to a normal sale, etc. So it's got to go into the general ledger. To do that, it's fairly simple. Just go to general ledger. You immediately know it's got to be a transaction. We come to transactions, you'll see in here there's a series of transactions, but we want to actually go to the receipt entry area. We go into receipt entry. Very simple. What was the receipt date? Whatever date you put in here, it will actually then post to that period. So if I put it in as being May, you will know the general ledger is May. If I hit enter, it will give it the next receipt number automatically. The receipt amount that I put in, the system at this stage assumes it's a GST inclusive amount, which is a little bit different to most transactions within Triumph. In Triumph, most things are treated as being ex-GST, but it knows that a receipt would already include GST, so I can go, it came from Mr. Smith for rent. I can decide how the transaction is dealt with. Is it a cash I've been received? Is it a cheque? Is it a credit card? Is it EFT? I'll just do this one as a cheque for the moment. What's the bank account that I'm putting the money into? So I can choose which bank account, or we'll just pull through the default account. You'll see it's got an exchange rate. If I'd chosen to do a foreign currency bank account, it would let me do it in that different currency. I'm just doing a simple one in Australia. It's coming through. If what's the bank, what's the branch. So this information, if I enter this in, it'll actually flow it through onto my bank deposit slip. Hit enter. What's the general ledger account it goes to? So I can choose the account. It'll default the date. I can change the date if I want to. I can put in another reference, put in a description. I can nominate that it was $55 from here. How much GST, or if I'm looking at this, what was the GST breakdown that I wanted to? I want this one to go to there. How much GST? I can put something through as a different account and go, it's $55, but it's free of GST. So I'm easy break it down into multiple lines. Process that through. Optionally, I could have also had it turned on that it would actually print me a receipt at that point. If I have a look at where that actually has gone to now, I've processed through that. If I went to my bank reconciliation, transaction entry, and went to look at my bank deposit entry, there it is. It's sitting on my bank deposit slip, waiting for me to bank that, ready to deposit into the nominated bank account. I'm not going to process that at the moment, but it's sitting there waiting for me to do that, so I'll abandon that transaction. So it's easy to see that you can come into the general ledger transactions, receipt entry, and process it straight through to the bank rec. Something just to bear in mind, that if you are in the bank reconciliation, you can come through and put through other receipts, like things like the debtors receipts as well. So it is actually allowing you in the general ledger to deal with other receipts at the same stage. But for the simple stuff we were doing, we really want to just stay into the general ledger receipt area. So you need to make a direct payment out of your general ledger. To do a direct payment out of your general ledger, you can go to general ledger transaction entry, and you'll see there's a function here called payments entry. If I come into here, I can pick the date that I want to do that, and that'll go to the appropriate period in the general ledger. If I just enter through there, it'll ask for a payment number. If I hit enter, it'll just pull up the next payment number for me. I can put through the amount of the payment. Depending on the method of payment, I can put this through. If I do it as a check, I can have it actually print the check out. If I do it as an EFT, it'll take it out of the bank immediately as an EFT transfer. Or if I put it through as cash, it will assume the money's been taken out of the banking deposit area and remove the cash out of that area. I'm just going to do this one as an EFT. What bank account am I taking this out of? Who am I paying? And this would print it on the check if you wanted it on the check. What's the general ledger account that I want it to go to? What's the date of the transaction? If I've got a reference number, what's it for? The amount. You'll notice that because it is a payment out, it's assuming immediately that it has a GST in it. I can choose to then put it through as GST and it'll come through. There's multiple lines here, so I can split a payment into multiple transactions. Very simple to do that. Process that through. That'll immediately put that into my bank account, processing it through. So if I went in and had a look at my general ledger now, figures, look in March, and there's the transaction for Mr. Jones, less the GST. If I put through that entry and make it a little larger, you'll see it's taken it out of the cash, out of the bank, advertising and GST, put in the date of when I did it. Nice and simple for anyone to track things through. So one of the nice things in general ledger is Triumph has a function under transaction entry called accrual journal entry. What an accrual journal entry is normally most people will put through an accrual for an expense in one period and then have to go and reverse it in the next period. What Triumph's good at, it actually lets us put this entry in and it'll automatically put that entry straight into the next period. So if we just go in and have a look at how we do this, it's exactly the same as if we were doing a normal journal entry. I'll just come through and I'll put this through into the 30th of April. It'll give me the next journal number. I won't do anything with GST at this stage. I'm going to come in and I need to pick an account. We'll just come down and pick an account like cleaning. I'll put that through as accrual of expense of $5,000. There's a debit to that account. And I'll put it through my accrued liabilities account. So nice and easy journal. I've accrued $5,000 against my cleaning account, put it into my accruals account, process that through. Normally what that means as the accountant, I need to then remember that in May I need to go in and reverse that. What's really good, if I go in here under the general ledger, posting account inquiry, go and search for my cleaning account and look at my figures, and you'll see here there's the 5,000 going through in April, but lo and behold it's automatically taken it out in May for me. So I don't have to remember it's already done it. So if I just go and have a look at the transactions in there, there's the accrual entry, putting it in, what date and time we did it. If I close that and then move into May, you'll see there's the reversing entry coming through and doing the exact opposite transaction, knowing that it actually should be reversed. So it just makes it very simple for me to do accruals, knowing that they're going to be automatically reversed in the next financial period. I'm just looking in general ledger under transaction entry. We're looking at the standing journal entry. So normally accountants tend to have what they call standing journals, which are journals that they run every month. I tend to think there's two sorts of standing journals. There's what I've got called standing and this one's called standard. Standing journal normally means that it's exactly the same every month, while a standard one means it's the same journal but every month you've got different figures. So I'll just show you how we can do both of those within this standing journal entry area. So I just come into that entry using its shortcut key as well, GTS. If I want to go there. First thing I need to do when I'm setting up a standing journal is I can either have one that's pre-set up before, or if I close that I'll just open a new one. I'll just call it standard for the moment. So this is just setting it up. I can set up two sorts of journals, either a manual or an automatic. So a manual means the user still needs to come in and post it. Automatic means I can set this up and have it automatically post at the start of each new period, or have it automatically post for the whole year in advance. I'm just going to do a manual one for the moment. I can set it up to how often I want something to run. So if I'm looking down here, I can actually define how many periods between posting. So something could be set to run every 3 months, every 6 months. I'm just going to go with 1 at the moment. I can then also set up the number of times I want something to occur. So normally I tend to put something like 36 or 48 in here if I'm putting in my leases. That way it'll automatically stop putting the standing journals through for me at the end of those known number of periods. So just stopping me repeating things I don't need to repeat. I can put in my journal date that I want it to do. It'll give me the next journal number. I can set up my normal GST or foreign currency, and then I can just come in here and put in my journal, whatever I want it to be, and put in a debit credit. So nice and easy journal, nothing too spectacular about that. And I can do the same as I've done with all the other journals. So if I hit OK, this is when we actually see a little bit of a variance.
So normally when you do a journal, it posts it straight through into the general ledger. In this case here, it lets me decide on a few things. I can either save this journal and not post it into the general ledger. I can post it into the journal but not save it. I can both save it and post it, or I can post it in reverse, or I can cancel out of it. I'm just going to do a save, I think, for my. So if I do a save, that means it hasn't actually processed it through. If I come out of there, I can then do other things that I've always done, come back into it, open up that standard journal, and then go, yes, I do want to now, process it, and I can post it away quite happily. If I then came into the next month, I could come in here and go, yes, I now want to move to the next month. And go into the same area, and I can hit OK, and I can post it again. So that there is if I was doing a standing journal, I'd just be able to post it every time. If I'm doing a standard journal, I could come in here and pull that journal up, come in here and go, I'm going to now change that for this month. Go OK, post that through, pull it up again, and you'll see it's reverted back to being at the original 500, which is my template. Or if I've made a mistake, I can actually come in here and go, yes, I will post it in reverse. But it just makes it very easy for me to have journals that I want to just repetitively process through, making adjustments or making them go through automatically. Hopefully that makes your life a little bit easier. So I want to just go in now and have a look at General Ledger, and we want to have a look at the listings that come with the General Ledger. The listings are all of your static information. So just letting you go through and have a look at things that you previously set up through maintenance so you can have a look at what they are. So we'll just start at the top of this and we go the posting account listing. Opening this up, and what this will give us is an ability to print out just the posting accounts. And the posting accounts are any accounts that have been ticked with the posting flag on them. So these are the ones that users can post to. You can either print it by the GL code, the alternate code, or in chart of accounts order. So if we just run one up in GL account order, you'll see what this is doing is coming up in the account code order. Or you could run the same report in chart of accounts order, so it's running up. So in this case it's the same because my accounts are in numeric order, but some people will find that by setting the chart up with a different sequence, you can actually have the chart order being different to the actual number sequence. If we just have a look at what the report does give us, it tells us the account code, description, general ledger control, and you'll see it's actually saying these are opening and closing balance accounts. The ratio group, summary type, what's going to happen at the end of the year with things, and if they've got a tax code preset on accounts. And if we look at the brief selection, is really just by account code. Fairly simple report. Next one down is we have the GL budget listings. So normally this is just a list of your budgets. So you can see you can choose to run for this year's budget, last year's, next year's, or different budgets you've got in the system. We can either have it for all periods that you've run to the 18 periods or just the financial period. Same selection criteria as we've just seen a minute ago. We choose to do it by the chart account code or by the account code or description. Just run that up and have a look at it. This will give us the general ledger code, the description of what it is, and then what the budget is for each month and the grand total. When I'm doing this, I don't always use this report. I'm just going to take you into another area to have a similar report. Just go to reports and run the period comparison report and run this one by budget numbers. We'll actually see this is giving us a budget by each period, so sometimes that's an easier way to see the budget we're getting reported through. So it gives you a couple of options there on how to list out your budgets. I'll just go back into the listings again. Carrying on down that list, chart of accounts listing. This was one just coming through and choosing it by chart of accounts, but we'll run this up and have a look at it. So this is actually printing out the chart that you'd set up previously. What's the account code, the description with the sort of formatting you'd put in, the headings and boldings, etc. What column, what level, what style of printing, how the add tos work, debit, credit, posting, ratio, summaries. I tend to find people actually print this one out a lot more often when they're using their coding than the posting account, but it gives you a couple of options. The GL posting tables. This is actually looking at the general ledger posting table and actually giving you what is set up as the control accounts behind the scenes for all the different standard ones, which is your stock, your job costing ones and your fixed assets ones. So if you want to have a look at the training course on the posting tables, that'll give you an idea of what each of the different accounts are. Ratio group listing. So this is giving you what ratio groups can be set up when setting up your master chart. So this actually is used to define one of the other special reports to give all your ratios. So you actually use these settings and this flows through to make sure your ratios are right. It also can be used to do some extra reporting by percentage on things by setting up what are your sales accounts. So just giving you the brief settings. And we can also print out standing journals. So choosing our standing journals, but if I just run that up, it shows me each of the standing journals that I've got set up for the year and what are the debits and credits. So I can actually have a look at those to see what I've got previously set up. So you'll see that just by looking at that, the standing or the listings area just gives you anything that we've been setting up under maintenance, so we can go back and have a look at it, print it out, put it on file, or just run it off to have a look. So I'm just going to my general ledger and we'll have a look at our reports. Just going to have a look at some of the more basic reports just to do our audit trail type thing. So the first basic report people most likely like to look at is your general ledger trial balance. Fairly simple type of system. What it does is let you choose the period that you're running for. And something that not a lot of people actually appreciate, there's this little thing here, 0 for opening balances, so I'll just run that one up. Just to begin with, this is actually giving me the opening balances for the financial year. So for your auditors or your accountants, so they can check off their figures from the prior year, you can just run that up and that'll give them their starting figures. If I run up a normal period, so I'll just go with period 9. When I'm running this report, I can do it by GL code, description, chart of account. Most people just run it by the GL code. I can suppress 0 accounts. I can suppress some of the comparison numbers for periods. So I can actually get rid of the period figures. I can get rid of last year's. I can summarise totals. I can do it with no drill downs, and I can also do it with account mask. And I'll just take you through a few of those things in a second. We can do chart by chart codes, or we can do it by GL codes or by descriptions. We just run the basic report to begin with. What this gives us is last year's figures, the GL code, the description, what is the figures for the month, being a debits and credits, what are the years. You'll see the numbers are in blue here. If I actually click on a number that's in blue, it will actually drill in for me and give me all the transactions that justify that period that I was looking at. Or if I double click on the year-to-date pictures, it will go and give me the transactions for the whole year and drop them into their own previewed spreadsheet. So you can see you've got be able to pick them. And if you then want to do things like drop them off or print them out or export them out, you can choose to put it out into a PDF or into an Excel format, etc. I won't go ahead and do that at the moment. I want to come back out of there, close that report. I'm just going to run a couple of things here. So I'm going to do it with the suppressed period, suppressed last year. And you'll see it's just giving you year-to-date figures. Nice and simple sort of thing. Close back out of there again, put them back on again. Something you will do here is, if I say no drill downs, it actually takes away the blue settings we've got. And if I am dumping that out to Excel, I always turn off the no drill downs because it actually drops it down to Excel in a far tidier format. If you've got the drill downs on it, it tries to actually allow for all of the reports you're drilling down to give you those formats, so it gives you extra columns. You take the no drill downs down, it'll actually drop it out with the columns that you want to see. While we are in here, just something that's always handy is this little search text box. I'm looking for a particular number, so say it's 2,833. I can put that in, click find, and you'll see it'll actually go and find it for me. That's available in all of your reporting through the whole system, but I tend to find I use it a bit more in the trial balance than in most other places. Or I can also go in here and just choose to pick up certain accounts. So I can just say I want to pick everything that's got an account 1 in the first code and anything in the next accounts. Oops, that's gone, so it hasn't picked up what I wanted to. So let's just back up there and run that again. So what I did is, because I had 1 and I put 5 commas, couldn't find anything with that matched that, but if I put with the three question marks, it knew to pick them up, and it just pulled up anything that had the 1,000 in them. So that gets handy when you are trying to pick out or look at particular areas. So a lot of this selection criteria flows through into some of the other reports, and you'll see that at a later date. So given that I'm just looking at some of the audit things, I'm going to skip some of the reports here and just have a look at the GL transaction report. So I can come in when I'm looking at the GL transaction report, pick a month that I want to do it for. Same sort of thing where I was doing the selection mask. I can select certain masks, or I can actually select certain masks that are in descriptions of codes as well. I can come in, choose to have a selection based on account code, the account description, the date of the transaction, the event number, the transaction number, the reference number, an amount, or whether it's a controlled account. I'll just run this up. So what this is giving me is, here's the account 1000, and there are all the transactions in period 9. And I can look at that. You'll see the blue bit here as normal. If I see a blue bit, I can just double click into there. And when I double click into there, it'll actually give me the event that goes behind that, so I can actually get the event. So now we've recorded that through, we come out of that report. And that's a fairly simple report. Normally when you want to get more detail, something I tend to find I do if I am doing those sort of ones, I also, as you would have seen in the trial balance, run the trial balance and it lets me double click on those and get the similar information straight out of the one report. If I go into the other audit report that I wanted to have a look at, is the event reference report. And here I can actually have a look at a period and range. I can also run a report for anything unbalanced. So if you've had something untoward happening on the hardware and something's crashed, you can go and find any unbalanced transactions, or if you really want to look, there's also a special area under special processing to find those. Same sort of thing, I can put masks in. I can select any event by its event number, its transaction number, its type of event, the date that it was put on there, the date you actually entered it, who entered it, what was the program source, what was the workstation. So all these things are the information that comes off on the bottom of an event, so you can go and pick them up. I just run this up and have a look. So we're now coming through and getting a whole series of events, but you can see there's the event number, transaction coming through, what was the journal that happened, and if I double click on it, it gives me that full-blown event, so I can then see who did it, when they did it, etc. So just giving you the ability to get your audit trails through. So if we just summarise what that's giving us, is trial balance gives us your normal traditional trial balance. The transaction report gives you the detail that makes that up, and the event reference is really a list of every journal. So they're the main three reports for auditing. So one of the major reports that people are trying to get out of their accounting system is their monthly profit and loss report. So to get to your monthly profit and loss report, you go general ledger, reports, and you'll see it's there as profit and loss balance sheet, or if we're using the shortcut things, GRP. I'll just go in and have a look at this. What I can do is select the period that I want to run my P&L for. I'm just going to go with period 9 at the moment. I can either run this as a combined P&L balance sheet, or I can run my P&L by itself or the balance sheet. I'll just run with the combined. We can do things like, do I want to have it rounding or to the nearest dollar or to the nearest $1,000? We can run things with a degree of levels, and I'll give you a bit of an idea of that in a second. I can suppress zero balances. We can suppress periods, we can suppress last year's, we can say we want to do it with no drill downs, we can print it with the account codes, or we can do some account masking. Or we can actually choose to pick certain accounts that we want to actually select a range to print by. I'm just going to print the whole P&L balance sheet and just have a look for the minute. So just make that a little bit bigger. So what this is giving me is based on what I've set up in the chart, what the descriptions and things are, and this is all driven off the chart. What are the accounts themselves for the month, the year? Where I've got these blue things, if I click on that, it'll let me drill in and have a look at what the transactions were for that month. Or if I come back to the preview, I can drill in and have a look at the transactions for the year. And I can preview that, so I can have as many accounts as I like open there. But you'll see this report's coming through based on the layout we've put in, giving me my gross sales for each of my departments. In this case, I can arrow down to the next page, so it's giving me my total income, total expenses, arrow down, and oh, yep, I need to go back one page. It's coming down and giving me my net profit there, and my distributions and what's carried through to my balance sheet. I can get my balance sheet giving me my position of where I'm at. So let's just run that with a couple of the variations coming through. So first thing I want to do is suppress the period and also suppress last year. So when I do this, you'll see that the last year comparative numbers don't come up, and neither do the periods. Now I've compressed that. Just talking the comparative numbers, there's a setting in the system. Come out of there and minimize in the system setup under the general ledger control. You can define whether you report your last year as a year-to-date position or a last year to the period. So report last year as last year to date, otherwise last year's closing balance. So you can choose how you want to report things. Come back out of there and go back into my P&L. Just put those back on again. I'm now going to print it with my account codes on and my no drill downs. So what this has now given me is given me the GL code, so it's easy to look up. You'll see now it's actually taken away the blue bits, so I can't actually drill into them. Normally if I want to drop this out into a spreadsheet by coming up here and exporting the report, I would always print it with the no drill downs, because without the drill downs in there, the system actually we'll go through and clean up the balances and transactions so it looks a lot tidier, because when you actually got the drill downs, it's trying to allow the columns and things for the drill down layout as well. So key thing there, if you want to drop it into Excel, say no drill downs, and then it'll drop down a lot tidier. Take those off again. And I want to now just print this with a level of detail. So what a level of detail lets me do is, if I go with a level 5 here, you'll see what it's doing is just giving me a net profit figure. If I go back to a level 3, I can be getting summarising of just my trading figures. Go back to a level 2. I can get more detail again. So what it is you've actually got the ability with your chart of accounts to create up to 9 levels of detail. So you can start off very detailed, and every level summarises the information up for different people. And I'll go back to a level 0 and come in here and say I want to have everything that has question mark 000 and say print code there. You'll see what it does is pick up every account where I had question mark on the first one and then the next 3 digits. So just giving me totals, and this allows where someone's got logic in their chart to actually bring certain functions out. So that's fairly simple. Coming back to the chart, give you the ability to print off your P&L balance sheet. So I want to go now and have a look at just one of the other reports in the P&L, just called the period comparison report. So the period comparison report is really about designing to give you a spreadsheet. So if I just come in here and we'll just have a look at what it does straight off. In this case, it's giving me what's the account code and what's the transactions for every month. So nice and easy to actually see the processing coming through. You can come in and actually choose this to do more than one period. So you can actually choose the whole 18 periods or pick whichever period you want to report on. What's good is you can actually report this year and last year's figures to compare numbers. You can do the actual or the budget numbers. You can either run a combined P&L balance sheet altogether or just do a profit and loss. You can actually round it to the nearest dollar or $1,000. You can use the same sort of level of suppression and details that we've seen in other reporting, so you can actually have it summarised up. Suppressing things, same information, you can say you want to drop it out without drill downs. You normally click that if you want to drop it out into Excel. Print it with the account code and choose it by a range. So I'm just going to go, yes, I'll do it with a code. So I can come in here and give me that. It gives me the ability to drill in and have a look at what was in that period for the year or what was in the period there. So it's quite easy, so you can actually jump around and look at all the different periods of the year and track things through. And because it is every period, it lets you actually come in and if you turn the no drill downs on, you can actually drop it straight into Excel and get every period on a spreadsheet type look. Alright, I'll leave you with that one to have a play with. We'll go to the General Ledger reports and we want to have a look at the budget comparison report. So what the budget comparison report gives us the ability to do is actually compare our figures for the year. So this is actually giving us the ability to see a chart of accounts down the page. What's our budget for the month, our actual for the month, and what variance we're getting. What's our budget for the year, our actual for the year, and what variance, and then what is this year's total budget we want to aim to. So nice simple report to be able to compare and make sure you're actually tracking against your budget quite happily. Coming out of there, similar sort of options in all the reports. You can choose what period you want to do it for. You can do it as a combined P&L balance sheet or just the balance sheet. you can zero suppress, do it with no drill downs, print the account codes. So I can do one here with my level 2 with the codes. So I'm just getting the account codes coming through with just the summary details on there. Nice, easy. Same sort of thing where you've got the blue though, you can actually drill in and get what's the budgets for each period, or what was the actuals for the month that we're looking at. Or if I wanted to drop it out in a spreadsheet, I do it with no drill downs and let me just drop it out from there. So that's a nice, easy report to give you some budget comparison reporting. So just having a look at some of the other reports that are quite handy in the general ledger reporting for management. The report here is a management dashboard. So if I have a look at the management dashboard, it gives us a couple of options. And what the management dashboard is really, it allows the management team to set up their own functions and things they want to look at specially. So this is the default one coming from Triumph, but it lets me have a look at my dates by due date or by invoice date. If I preview this report, let me just have a little look at what it's going to give me. It gives me a little bit of information about what sales have I had for the month, the costs, the GPs, and you'll see it's broken into the different areas. So it then gives me what's the due dates for invoicing, so I can actually get an idea of when my cash flow is coming in, creditors when the cash is going out, what stock have I got on hand, what job costing work in progress, what's quoted or unexpired quotes have I got, what's my current fixed assets position. Come over and has a look at sales for the day, the month, the year, sales cost, GP percentage, sales orders have I got, what purchase orders, are they unexpired, future, back ordered, ready to go, what's my current tax liability position, and what's in my bank accounts at the moment, giving me a grand total position. So just a nice simple report for someone in the management team to have a quick look every day of where they're up to. The good thing is it's all written in Crystal, so you can either edit and change this and put in different functions, or use this as the base to create another report. One of the other reports that quite commonly comes in from the more financial people is under X reports, the GL ratio grouping. So this is about making sure that if you've defined your ratios, if I come back into my chart of accounts for a minute, is when I set up my thing, I have a ratio group here, and I need to have chosen what ratio each account is, whether it's inventory, sales, expenses, etc. So once I've set those in place, I can run this report and choose the period, and it'll actually give us a series of KPIs, things like current ratios, asset test ratios, average turnover of days of stock, days in inventory, days of sales in debtors, and a few other earnings ratios that might be of interest to have a look at, just to sort of go through and get an idea of what's there. So that just gives the more financial people, or the financiers and the bankers, the ability to get the information that they're looking for their KPIs. So it's that time of the quarter again, you need to do your BAS. So to do your BAS, you can go to General Ledger, Special Processing, and there's a BAS activity statement. Before we go and have a look at that, let's just have a brief look at some of the settings that we need to make sure that fit into a BAS. So to do that, we want to go to System Maintenance, System Setup, System Control, and under Tax Control Maintenance. In here, we can actually be checking whether the system is a GST system or not. What's your current ABN? What's your default codes for G, for tax, for free? Do you report on a cash basis or an accrual basis? Do you report monthly or quarterly? And what sort of history of BAS transactions do you want to actually keep? The system also lets you then record, I have the default for claimable GST, collected GST and accrued GST for purchase orders that have come in. And you'll also then find under common file options is the ability to set up your tax codes. So your tax codes let you set up all the different types of tax codes that you're wanting to have. So you can see there's the standard ones for adjustments, capital acquisitions, exports, GST free, GST included, input sales and acquisitions, no GST on an item, wine equalisation and wet tax. If we just have a look at the normal one, you can come through here and say, is it a complex calculation? So a complex calculation is like a wet tax where it has two different types of tax categories on it, and you need to add them together to come up with things on where's it going to go in the general ledger. If we look at the normal GST one, it's 10%, and here is the different accounts it's going to go to. So to get your GST to work, we need to make sure all that's set up, and you can actually set up new ones in there if you've got something. So commonly people set up another one for when they're importing, so that they're importing from a wholesaler without tax, but then they'll have the tax being paid to their broker at 100% rate. So that's just a couple of other examples of things that can be set in there to make processing a little simpler. So now we've got our tax code set up and we know we've processed everything through. We'll go back to where we actually produce our BAS. So the BAS is under General Ledger, Special Processing Business Activity Statement. Coming in here, we normally then record in the document ID number, or if you haven't got a document ID number, I normally then just put in the year, month, the date to give me a document ID number. And given I've already got one going, what I might do is just clear this one I've got going and start that again. So actually then, if I clear one through, will give me the ability to actually go in and change my start period. So if I'm changing my start period, what that does is set where my next BAS is coming to start from. So you'll see I've got a couple of different BASs in there. If I pull up one that's there now, it's saying what's the period I'm starting, what's it ending, when's it due in, the details. I can put in the time it's taken. The system brings through, I can set up my G1 settings, what's the totals coming through, my information coming through from my PAYG. I can come in here, I can actually manually enter these in, or I can actually have them linked up with accounts in my general ledger. I can have my PAYG instalment coming through. I can either fill that in, I can put in my variation rates, and I can either have that sort of set to come off different codes. Filling in my FBT information. I've also got a summary of my GST, because my GST is worked out on my calculation sheet here. So what this is you'll see if you look at a normal GST return, so all the different fields, and as I click on the three dots, it brings up for me the ability to go off and say, based on the tax codes I've set up, which tax codes do I want to report? So in this case I've got I, G, F and E. Do I want it to include it with GST amount inclusive or exclusive of GST, or just the amount itself? You'll see I've also got the ability to go to the general ledger, so I can actually go and get information directly from the general ledger. In this case the information is coming from the tax transactions themselves, and every different field is just filled up with what's actually required for each one to fill through. So you'll just have a look and you'll see that there. As I get down to the bottom, it actually does something slightly different. I've changed it now. I want to just look at the GST amount rather than the inclusive amount for all the different things I'm reporting. So that's a sort of structural setup. To actually calculate my BAS, I just come in here and I hit the calculate button, and you'll see it actually runs through and reads all my transactions. Once it reads the transactions, it puts the amounts in here to say this is what my BAS should be. I can then hit my save button. What the save button actually records those transactions have been included in this BAS. Something that's different to a lot of BAS reporting in some of the smaller systems. A lot of the small systems use purely the dates that you put into the report to select what goes on the BAS. What Triumph does, which is quite powerful, and if I just go off and have another look at a different report, under the System Maintenance Common File Options Reports area, there's a thing called the Tax Register. In the Tax Register I can come in here and I can actually come in and say I want to look at my sales numbers. I'll just do a preview and make that a little bit bigger. So what this does is come through and reads all the things that have gone through my debtors invoicing or my point of sale, and you can see each of the different transactions there. But what it does, which is quite powerful, is this column here. This column here is the BAS that is actually reported on to the BAS ID. So what the system automatically does is looks at the date I'm reporting, selects all the dates, all the transactions within that date range, but it also looks back at any date that's prior to that date that hasn't had a document ID and selects those. So the whole reconciliation to your general ledger is far simpler. So it picks them up, reports them. I'll just make that smaller so you can see it, try and get what I do. You'll see here it's coming through, giving me the document ID, and these ones are in the next BAS, so it knows not to report them. What's handy though is an error that a lot of people do when they run the tax register. They tend to come in here and do this and just choose to do it by a date range. I always run this by my document number because I can pick up my document number, put that in, view it, and it automatically knows what's on there. And then these numbers at the bottom are what we'll see on the summary page of the BAS report. So it's coming through and giving me the total amount, the tax amount, what's been collected. What's handy as well, I can actually run this report and go, I want to just do a summary report, and therefore it's only giving me the summary information. Or I can also run an exception report to tell me anything that doesn't automatically divide by the predefined tax figure that should be. So it's come through there and said no, not still without a summary. There it is, it's coming through and reflecting for me. My tax rate should be 10% or 0, and it's actually saying there's a tax collected figure or a tax collected figure that isn't 10%. And that way you can actually check and make sure that you've actually picked things up right, because even though you should be 10%, not always is it absolutely correct to the individual cent, but it'll actually let you go through and pick up any one that's variation. And if I look at that, I can also then do my purchases with the same thing. I'll do it with no. It comes through and gives me all my purchases that were in my BAS ID and gives me the summary. So if we come back out of there now, I normally run those reports off and just put them onto a PDF or file them so I've got them, because they're actually the justification for whatever was coming through on my calculation sheet, so justifying these numbers. So if I've calculated all these numbers, I would normally then select to print this out. So this is then giving me, here's my BAS and the numbers I need to put onto my reporting for my GST purposes. I've got the tax register to back up those figures. I can either then send this to the accountant who submits it, or I can submit it myself, or if I want to, I can actually then just click the export, and this will create the XML file for you so you can load up onto the business portal. So hopefully that gives you a good explanation of how to actually now do your BAS reporting. So we're looking at the general ledger. So if you've got to where we are now, you've really gone through looking at transaction entry, file maintenance, listings, reports, and we're looking at special processing. So special processing is really covering all of the components that aren't covered in the areas above. So if we just open up and have a look at it, and I'll just run through each of the different ones for you. So the first one being post-period standing journals. If you've set up standing journals under the transaction entry area, you know you can have either manual or automatic ones. What this lets us do is come in for the automatic ones and say, I want to come in here and I want to run them for this month. So I've set them up so they can be run and they'll just come through an increment one at a time. All I need to do is go next and it actually processes. So I've got nothing there to run at the moment, but if there's some setup, it would post them all through for me. I'll skip the BAS because we'll do a special session on that one. And now just look at posting period control. So this is quite a powerful little area that you need to get your head around. So what this is actually telling me is we can actually have our general ledger periods open, our debtors posting period, our creditors posting period, our inventory and our job costing. So normally as the accountant moves through, you go through a process and you go, as at the end of the month, I have done my statements. When I've done my statements, I normally then print those off. If I want to stop people being able to backdate things because they've got the wrong dates on there, I'd normally then just move this down into April, and that stops people accidentally putting invoices that were dated last month through. Normally in line with doing my credit debtors, I've done that. So for the next week, I'm getting in all my creditors invoices. I can process those backwards into the previous month until I've completed those. When I've completed my creditors invoices, I can close that, and normally at the same time do my job costing. And I can leave my general ledger open so I can do my bank recs and finalise things. And then when I'm actually finished there, I can actually close that off. So the aim of closing this off is just stopping people accidentally using backdated transactions and giving you incorrect reports. Because traditionally, you're producing a set of accounts, giving it to the board or the management team, and you don't want people corrupting it by backdating something and it suddenly becoming back in November and not seen in the current set of monthly figures. So this just lets you do some quite neat controlling, and the good thing is you can lock things down as you go and do things, but should you say, oh yeah, I need to go back, I can actually unlock things and move things back to the periods and redo it as the accountant and then turn it back on to stop the staff doing things as well. So just a fairly good area to control things. Validating the chart of accounts, I think if you've seen the chart maintenance, you would have come through this, but what this lets you do is actually go through and check that the chart of accounts all adds up correct and sub-adds. So it'll go through and check to make sure everything adds up correctly and then warn you if anything isn't. And if there's any of your control accounts haven't been set up, it'll actually warn you that those haven't been set up so you can go and set those up. The general ledger integrity is just in place should you have something happen on a PC that is broken down, or a network card's gone, or cable's been kicked out, or the power goes off in the middle of something. What this lets us do is run through and check balances and data to make sure it's actually correct. So it'll actually go through and read all of the individual transactions that are in the GL transaction file and add them up and compare them against the totals that are in your inquiry fields. So you run through and it actually can run through and check to make sure that there is no unbalanced transaction and everything tallies up with the figures. We can then also have to move on to delete things. So when you're actually going through and you're saying, I want to delete things out of my system, the concept there is you actually flag it for deletion. When you flagged it for deletion, you need to put yourself into single user mode with the access. So you'll see here, down here I'm in multi-user. I would need to go to being in single user, and then I can come and run my delete flagged items. So what this lets me do is remove anything that's been flagged, and when it's removing, it goes and checks all of the historical rules that you've said. I want to hold things for 6 months, 12 months, 3 years, whatever you decide. It'll make sure it honours all of those things before deleting them. Good thing is when you're running this, you can actually do this in any of the modules and choose a series of modules to do it once, and it will go through and have a look at everything. If you've got something that you think should be deleted and it doesn't delete it, and there's some reason it can't delete it, it'll actually come up in there and give you a report saying that this account is still in a purchase order, or it's still on a bill of material, or some reason that it can't delete it. So you understand why you would think it should delete and it doesn't want to delete. It's normally because you've got a rule that you've forgotten about that you want to maintain for some reason. I won't run it at the moment, but it'll run through and delete everything. Just bear in mind that can take a little bit of time sometimes to run. I'll leave it off in single user. The same thing is end of month processing. It's another single user process, because this actually goes through and does some transfers of balances and things. In the general ledger, you can run this on a monthly basis, and it will just move things from month to month, or you can actually run your end of year. So it'll run through, and I won't run it at the moment, but if it runs at end of year, I'll just show you a few things. It will actually then clear your budgets, reset up budgets, goes through things, processes it, and does everything. The good part about this is you can actually do all the modules in one go. There is a procedure. If you go to the CA Management website, we actually have an end of month procedure document and also an end of year document to take you through those processes. Extra special options. Similar situation where we talked about integrity check earlier. Should you have a situation that something has gone wrong, you can run this check for unbalanced transactions. What it does is goes and checks every journal to make sure it debits and credits balance, and you can choose the periods or a transaction. So if I ran that through, it's run through the whole system, found there was nothing balanced. If it has found something that was unbalanced, it will pull it up and ask you whether you're happy to balance it, and then it will balance it off into the suspense account for you, and then you can actually do the correcting journals that you need to happen. Only reason this should happen is you've had some sort of failure of equipment or power or something while you were doing something. Set up opening balances. I'm not going to go through there. There actually is a separate video in the training course on that, so you can go in and actually have a look at that. The custom GL reporting. What this allows you to do is set up some customized reports and actually create things so that if you've actually got reports that you're running externally and you want to have all of your add to totals come through, this will run through and tally up all your totals, so that then you can run the report off and actually get it into a third-party reporting system. And last but not least in the special processing is the ability to change general ledger codes. Something quite powerful that you can actually come in here, and I'll just go to the jump to edit and go, pick an account. So I can pick an account here and say I want this account 2000 to now become an account called Fred, and I can add that in, and what the system would do is go through and change everywhere that the account 2000 is currently recorded and make it into Fred. So all of the history of the system changes over that new account. It allows you to make fairly large changes in your chart, and it happens as businesses change that your structure changes and you want to change your reporting methodology or give it new. You've had a new CFO and they want a new method, but it lets you go and do that. A couple of things that are handy in doing this. I'll just come back to the beginning of this. You can actually set this up as an import file, so you can have all of the old codes and all the new codes and just import it all in one file, and it will list them all out and run them through. Or we can choose certain ranges of accounts, or you can use some functions in here where you can actually do some automatic coding. So I can actually automatically start my new numbers. I can put some zero fills in front of a codes. I can have a replacement mask so that it would say everything that starts with 1 will have a new code, goes through in that range. I can insert prefixes or append suffixes, so it lets you just go through and make some bulk changes. Bear in mind that it still has to be in single user and can take a little bit of time if you've got a lot of history transactions. hopefully that's given you a brief summary of what all the added functions in special processing are. System maintenance, system setup and general ledger control. So this is where we need to just go in if we're setting up general ledger to actually control everything. So we'll just go in and have a look at some of the functions and options of what we've got here. So we can come in and we can decide whether we want to reflect budgets in the system, whether we want to have in our P&L balance sheet to compare this year's numbers against last year to date or just last year total balance. Instead of using the posting period control under special processing, we can actually come in here and manually set where our periods are posting up to, and we can come in and give it the next journal number. Nice easy sort of setup of the control. We have the general ledger control maintenance, and you'll find if you go through there is actually a specific video that covers this, but this is actually setting up all the different control accounts needed to post between all the different sub-modules and the general ledger modules, etc. So this is sort of summarising where things will go to. We then have our financial period maintenance. So in here we can actually set up the dates for each period. You'll see in this example that we've set up and we're using the end of month dates, but there's no reason for me not to. I can change a date and have any end of period date that I like. What is handy is that you can come back in here after you've been running the system and change a financial period. What will happen, the system will go back and readjust every transaction in the period, looking at the transaction date and moving it to the new period that you've nominated. You've got 18 periods open, but you can nominate when the period changes. So you might have a 13 period year or a 14 period year if you wanted to. Defaulting is your monthly, you can do 4 weekly, or you can do another period setting. And because you can actually do things and change periods, we've had many occasions where people have started off with one set of reporting periods and then they've had a takeover or something and they've had to then change their reporting from monthly to 4 weekly or 445s and having different period end dates. So nice and easy to change that, and the fact that it flows through and it picks up all the historical transactions and puts them in the new periods makes things very easy to manage. And then we've got our bank rec control. So bank rec just sort of flows through from this, and it's how do we want to report things and how many history periods do we want to have. So just before we get off, there's something that's normally set up as part of doing general ledger. You also need to just make sure you look at your tax control, because tax control does all of your BAS settings and your ABNs and your default settings for BAS and history transactions, and where are the accounts going.
So when the accountant gives you your financial figures for last year and you need to adjust your opening balances, there's a couple of ways of doing this. First way, which normally we just get people to put the journals into their last year's accounts, get those accounts to come through, and from there, once you've got the figures, you can print your general ledger trial balance from the accountant, or after you've done your entries and you do your period 12, press the period, and then this normally gives you the final trial balance for the year. Once you've got this, you can then pick these figures up and then transfer into the new financial year. If we then have a look at how to do that into the new financial year, let's assume we've jumped straight over into that new financial year. Once you are in there, you go into the general ledger, special processing, extra special options, set up opening balances. What the opening balances gives you is then each different account for the year, both P&L and balance sheet. Normally when you're dealing with the opening balances, you're really only worried about your balance sheet items. So it's a matter of coming down to your balance sheet items and then recording each different account based on your trial balance. The only one that would ever cause you an issue is your retained profit, which you normally then will get the total of all of your P&L items and just feed it in as a retained earnings figure. But that is just very much a one-off job. What you can also do when you're doing these opening balances, you can also put in comparative figures for last year's. Optionally, this can be brought in as a journal, as an import as well. So normally the comparative figures, if you've rolled over, it doesn't need to be, but when you're initially setting them up, sometimes you'll bring them in. Most people tend to bring in just the GL opening balances as a manual entry. If I have put those in as my manual entry, I would always then go to my reports, general ledger trial balance, and print a period 0 report. What this then gives me is the opening balance figures, and I can make sure that these actually agree. If they don't agree, then I know I've done something wrong, and I will go back and just check it until I get it right. But that makes it very easy to make sure your entries have been put in correctly. So just summarising that, you want to go general ledger, special processing, extra special options, set up opening balances to bring them in, and once you've got them in there, then double check them by doing the general ledger reports trial balance period 0 to get the opening balance reports.
So when you're setting up the general ledger, one of the key components you need to spend time on is doing a chart of account type. But after the chart of account is configured, you will need to then go to the general ledger control, and in the general ledger control account maintenance, there's a whole range of accounts to be set up. What comes up in here will depend on what options you set up when you're actually doing the system setup for different modules. But we'll just work through for the moment, talk about each account and what needs to go into it. So the first one is the suspense account. Normally I'd set up something like 4 nines or 3 nines in the suspense account. The suspense account will collect any information where something has a one-sided entry, or if there's not an account set up correctly, it will always post to this account. So normally in a situation where you accidentally set something up wrong and left it blank, it will flow through to here, and you'll see the errors at that stage. The next one down is your bank account. Normally you set up with one bank account. You'll see I've done this in multi-division, because in multi-division you can actually set the bank account to be the bank account of a different division. So it will do a 4-sided journal between the divisions. The default receiving account, this is normally set up as your receipts received but not banked yet, or unbanked deposits. If you don't put in a separate default receiving account, it won't actually work where you can do your bank deposits. So normally I just set that up in the current assets. The cash rounding account is defined for rounding of invoices both in and out and through point of sale. A couple of key ones to think about here is balance brought forward and carried forward. The concept of the brought forward account is always a posting account and lets you bring last year's balance forward. The carry forward is a different account to any other posting account. It is actually the only one that is an add to, because when it actually does so, it needs to add through the profit and loss and the balance brought forward, and then that figure is then at the end of the year picked up and carried back into the brought forward account. So these two are very closely related, and you just need to be aware of that relationship. Foreign currency gain and loss only comes on if you've got turned on gain and loss accounts, and it is where all the losses and gains are reflected when they crystallise. Same situation with interdivision transfers. This only comes up when you're running a multi-division system and you set the system to allow you to do balanced ledgers. It'll also mean that you'll notice here it's got a 0.01. In this case, is that you can set up the system to go to different account ledgers, so that each different division's loan accounts will go to their own loan accounts. And that's a setting in the initial setup of the division area. Debtors, fairly simple one being trade debtors. Something to bear in mind that you can override that control account by flagging in the debtors control that you want to have set the control account, so that way you can then nominate a control account on each individual debtor's account. Settlement discounts only comes up if you turn on settlement discounts within debtors, and will therefore reflect where your settlement discounts want to go as an expense. Same thing with debtors retentions, being a liability, or sorry, an asset account. It only comes up if you turn on that you want to have retentions in debtors. Damaged goods. This is used when you're receiving goods in on a credit note and you've nominated the goods are damaged. So it will actually, instead of putting the goods back into the stock system as an asset, we'll write those assets off or those inventory items off to the damaged goods account so you can track how much has been written off. Creditors, trade creditors, exactly the opposite of your creditors, but in the same situation there, you can set up multiple control accounts in each individual creditor. Settlement discounts will only come up if you turn that on in the control area, and same with creditors retentions. We'll turn that on if you turn that on in the creditors control. Withholding tax is only used if you haven't got an ABN number or you've nominated you don't withdraw a certain amount of withholding tax at an invoice stage. Purchase order, you'll see you've got committed liabilities here and a default committed expense. Most times when I'm setting up accounts, I normally have these nominated being to the same account. You only need to really have committed liability and committed expense accounts set up as being different if someone wants to nominate an expense account at the time they raise a purchase order. One of the other ones that does come through here is the accrued liability, which is reflecting any goods that have been received on a purchase order, but the invoice yet hasn't been received. Inventory, setting up your opening stock and closing stock. Something to bear in mind is if you set up your posting table with an opening stock and a closing stock as being the same account, the system will actually ignore them. And it's like skip back on the purchase order. Same thing here, if you set your committed liability and your default committed expenses as the same account, it won't actually create any journal entry that just defaults them as being the same thing. Purchase accruals is the default account when using inventory by itself. If you're bringing in a goods receipt straight into the system, it's the account that's going to put the credit entry through to. It doesn't actually affect anything with purchase accruals or anything in the creditors. Common occasion you do this is when you're producing your own goods in a company and you want to bring new stock in and you need to have a credit account, which is really going to reflect as a sale in another division, so that division can sell it into your stock system. Stock on hand, simple and self-explanatory. Sales, discounts, normal purchases account that go with it. Last one here is warranty. This only comes if you turn on the warranty flag in the inventory control, and what it's designed for is when you're doing a sale to a customer, you can flag that sale as being a warranty sale, and instead of going through the sale, it will show as a warranty expense. It means that the system can cope with where the costs are going. Before we get off the inventory, you'll notice when you actually look at posting tables, this is really just used as a default area, and you set up your GL postings to the appropriate areas that you need to go for each stock item. Point of sale, first one we've got here is the POS cash account. POS cash is setting up and taking how much cash is received in all of your tills for the day, and you've got POS FPOS, same thing, how much FPOS have you received for the day. Then when you do a till roll, a cash draw write-off or an end of day write-off front, it allows you to get the details of how much cash is received, how much stock, and it'll journal out of that account into the unreceived funds up the top here, being the default receiving account. So it's fundamentally the process is how much is it in the tills now, and once it's been taken out of the tills, it goes how much is needs to be banked. POS unders and overs, really dealing with the situation. If you're doing your POS banking for the day and you've had some unders and overs, what's the expense going to go? If you sell things through POS as a no charge, you're giving them away, you need to reflect where that expense is going to go. Gift vouchers is a liability for any gift vouchers you sold. Order deposits is any liability for any deposits you've received that haven't yet sold. Same thing with a lay-by deposit. And then the other income is any default sales that you make which are coming through as a sundry income. Costings now lets us set up a default labour recovery so that when you're setting up a staff member, the normal recovery account they'll go to. Next one down is the overhead recovery, doing the same thing, setting it up to your defaults. And then if you turn on income in advance, it'll actually allow you to set up income in advance area. Hopefully that gives you a quick summary of what those accounts are, and the key thing to remember is a lot of these will only get turned on when you turn them on. Something just to bear in mind while we are just talking postings is tax control. In here you also have a few accounts that you need to set, and you normally also then need to be wary to set up your tax codes in here to make sure these are set for each different tax code. And finally, if you go to the general ledger, you need to ensure you do get all your posting tables set up. This is all the information that's flowing through as a defaulting.
So what we've included here is a couple of links to different websites where you can actually get a whole heap of useful documents that may or may not relate to the training course you've just been doing, but we've gradually been accumulating different notes and shortcuts that can come in handy. So feel free to go and have a look.